But there's the sound. All right. Okay.
All right. Wait. All right, everybody. We're back here in studio. What happened, Mr. Producer?
I accidentally had the page running with the live stream, so we're fine.
We're good to go now?
We're good to go now.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. We're having some technical difficulties. But we are here in studio with Soter, one of our local folks here in town. There's been a lot of discussion here lately about President Trump and the job that he's doing. I personally think that President Trump is doing a great job. I know that puts me in the minority of minorities. I'm fine. I'm comfortable there. But there are some people who are ill-informed, who have an issue with President Trump and the job that he is doing. But it's okay. I'm okay with people who don't believe like I do. I believe in free speech. I believe that people have the right to believe how they believe. But there are some people who are conservative and have been conservative all their life, like Soter here, and he firmly believes that that President Trump is not as conservative of a president as we would like him to be, or as he would like him to be. I'm not gonna put words into his mouth. How are you doing today, Soter?
I'm tired.
Tired?
Always tired.
Yeah? Well,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I've got 4 little kids who like to puke in the middle of the night.
4 little kids,
4
huh?
little kids, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's quite a brood.
Yeah, well, someone's got to make children when people don't.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad that you are doing that for the rest of us, bringing some great young children into the world. I'm sure they'll be conservative, young, minded.
We'll see. We'll see. They still have a long life ahead of them, and you know how it goes. Hardline conservative parent, the kid just goes off into the weeds of liberalism.
Well, maybe you should be just a little less hardline and embrace the Trump madness. I mean, I think if you did that, I mean, you'd be winning.
Well, I find him funny. Like, he's a very funny president.
Okay, funny. How so? I haven't heard. I mean, because liberals aren't laughing.
Well, that's the funny part.
Okay, all right. So what has he done that seems so funny in your mind?
Well, probably a good example would be shortly after he was elected, just the 180 in the politics that was going, or the political discussion at the time. Like, it was so certain it was going to be her turn. And then as the election night progressed, it went from, well, Hillary's going to be Clinton. Hillary is going to be president, to he actually did it.
Yeah.
He won.
What on earth? One of the happiest nights.
And we don't have a Florida? What?
It was a pretty decisive victory, right?
Yeah, it was. And I was up for a good chunk of it. And so I went from kind of this, this is going to be a long 4 years or 8, whatever, to this is going to be funny. This is the next day watching things like the Young Turk versus Alex Jones.
Right.
It was just, it was funny. Okay. It was really funny to me. And then coming out of that and into him up to the time when he was inaugurated and then after that, just the way he played the media and liberals when it came to political maneuvering.
Sure.
It was funny, and it was great from a conservative standpoint where for the longest time it never seemed like we won. Just the Republicans or conservatives who were in office just would, well, we're in the minority now. We got to do things to ensure that we actually get elected or reelected in 2 years. So we got to do all the gimme programs and things like that. And then when they're in power, like they become the majority in the state house or Congress, it's like, well, we can't we can't rub it in their faces. Meanwhile, just the opposite would happen. The Democrats or liberals would get super annoying when the Republicans were in power and just push. Well, we're not getting our way, so we're just going to, whine about it all the time. And then when they get in power, then they do all the things that they wanted to do when they were in the minority. And so it's just constant encroachments on liberties that just it drives a conservative to tears, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Resignation.
Sure.
It's just going to be terrible forever.
Right.
And then Trump walks in, goes and does stuff like, well, for every new regulation, we're going to get rid of 2. And then, as far as I'm aware, he actually has done that.
So you like that part?
I do like that part.
Okay. All right.
That's very encouraging.
Okay.
And I do like that aspect to him. I couldn't bring myself to support him in the election. I actually did vote for a third party.
Okay, so you threw your vote away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I guess I did.
Yeah. You tried to give it to Hillary. So, okay.
I actually gave it to a distant relative, but
Okay. So you were one of the guys that was responsible for our state almost going red, but not.
Sure.
Yeah, because I'm sure there were a few guys like you who did, which is interesting because in talking to you, like I have a lot of friends that are conservative. I have a lot of friends that are liberal as well, right? I have a good group of friends who were more classic liberals, okay, who did vote for Trump, who felt like he kind of embodied some of those things that old school Democrat Party spoke to. I mean, when was the last time you heard a Democrat on the stump truly giving some type of a solution as to how we were going to bring jobs back from foreign countries and bring jobs back to America? I mean, for bringing back manufacturing jobs, to bring back products being made and built in the United States. I mean, those were values that the Dems talked about back when I was a kid, but you haven't really heard any major party push for those values here of recent. So he did a great job of bringing over some of those old school Dems, you know. But it seemed like for my friends that were hardcore libertarian or hardcore conservatives, they weren't sure that he was actually going to be. They weren't sure that he was actually going to be governed conservatively, and they were pretty convinced that he wasn't going to govern conservatively.
Yeah.
So, what was your reason for not supporting right off the bat?
Probably the 2 biggest things for me in any political sort of thing is life or pro-life, anti-abortion, and guns. I think those 2 things are pretty much my drop dead type of issues. Like, if you're anti those things, well, you're never going to get my vote.
So, Second Amendment and pro-life. Okay. So if people are right on those things, will they earn your vote?
They could lose it if they're weird. There's I don't want to quantify it because I don't really know. Like,
okay.
It's gosh, I don't even know how to say it. There's someone could rub me the wrong way, or something that they're proposing I don't support, and I can't support them. But for me, those are non-starters.
Okay.
Trump's language when it came to pro-life was like, well, we're going to arrest the woman, but then he goes on to say, abortion's okay in some instances. And I don't agree with that. And, where does he actually stand? I don't know. He said both of these 2 things.
Okay.
So what am I getting? And as far as the Second Amendment, basically the same thing. He was for it, but then he would say things like, well, we should restrict them to people. I don't think anyone should be restricted from owning firearms.
So wait a minute. So you don't believe anyone should be restricted to owning firearms? What about felons? You think felons should?
I think they should be able to own guns.
You think felons should be allowed to have guns?
Yes.
So how bad is? I mean, so you believe someone who is a domestic abuser, someone who's a wife beater, you think he should be allowed to have?
I think
guns?
everyone should be able to have guns.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this could be fun then. Okay. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying that all felons, once they've served their time.
Well, I think anyone who is not in jail should be able to own guns.
Okay. Wow. And what kind of guns? I mean, AR-15s?
In a perfect world, any kind of gun.
Any kind of guns?
Any kind of gun.
Oh my goodness. You should run for president. I'm sure all the felons would vote for you.
Well, now they can vote, right?
Okay. So you believe that they should be given the right to bear arms?
Well, I mean, they have a bunch of other rights, right? Like they have the right to assemble, the right to free speech, press, religion, not quarter soldiers, not to incriminate themselves, to be secure in their properties and things. But for some reason, this one isn't.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying to me is that if all these other rights in the Constitution are guaranteed to these individuals, then why is it that, because we don't restrict their First Amendment rights?
It's part of the reason, but I'm kind of setting it up like they get a bunch of other rights when they leave the big house.
Okay.
Except this one for some reason. So.
Okay.
So anyway, continue on.
Well, I'm just flabbergasted. I mean, this is not a really popular view, so
probably isn't.
Yeah. Okay. So you believe that they should have the rights to keep and to bear arms, even though they have a criminal history. So, all right. So continue. So pro-life and guns, you felt like he was soft on, so you had an issue there.
I couldn't really tell where he stood.
Okay.
Like, cause he would be like, yeah, everyone, Second Amendment's important and blah 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 blah, hoorah. But then he'd be something like, well, we should ban bump stocks. There's these weird situations that arise, or not everyone should be able to carry a gun. Felons can't. Like I see a guy who's like just kind of saying things, and that didn't jive well with me. So I didn't know what I could trust him on, and so he didn't get my vote. I found him funny. Don't get me wrong. I found him funny, and I found his campaign hilarious, and I'm glad he won versus Hillary.
Okay, so when you say hilarious, do you mean you didn't take it seriously, or it was entertaining?
It was entertaining to watch.
All right.
It was entertaining to watch. There's some parts that were frustrating about it. In particular, when people would go, "Oh, the Republicans are racist. They're doing this, whatever. They're voting for Trump." And I looked at some of the numbers and the primaries and straw polls and all that stuff that up to the point of the RNC where he was actually endorsed, he only got like 40% of the votes from the delegates and stuff.
Right.
The other 60% was spread amongst all the other candidates who you could say were much more traditionally conservative in the party than he was. So you basically had this kind of moderate Republican bloc that would lose any other time, got their guy. Sure. So I really hate it when people hated it when people went down that road of, well, the Republicans endorsed a racist, or insert whatever about Trump. It's like, yes, yeah.
Well, one thing I have to say about you is, I mean, I've known you for a long time, and for my friend Soter here, one of the things I have to say is that it would seem as though you've always been very, very eerie about that racial line. Like, it seemed more than most, you've always been very protective of that Republican Party or that conservative viewpoint, and not wanting to be viewed in that racist light. I mean, much more. there's some that just don't care, right? But you've always gone the extra mile to ensure that whatever you were saying or whatever your message was, that it couldn't be construed as being racist, because you are a very inclusive guy. I'll give you that.
I'm friends with you, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I would hope that that's not the only reason, right?
Well, maybe we should talk about the first time we met, or one of the first times we met.
Another time. So, all right. So.
Well, no, it isn't. The way we became friends, I would say, is very natural. Like, I'm not going to walk up to a black guy or Asian or whatever and go, hey, let's be friends because you're different than me. It's going to be because there's something that we're doing. There's some reason that we're coming together and we get to know each other.
Sure.
And we did have that.
Right.
We did have that.
Right.
So.
Right.
So I didn't come up to you in the street and go, I want to be friends with you because you're black.
I was looking for a token white friend. I'll be honest.
Oh.
So thank you for being that for me. You fulfilled a need in my life, so I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, all right. So with that being said, let's go back. So you felt as though Trump was soft on the Second Amendment. And,
well, I couldn't know where he actually stood.
Okay, but you felt that okay, so you were unclear about it and unclear about his pro-life stance. So those were the two non-starters for you. How do you feel about it now? I mean, how do you feel like he's doing at this point?
Well, that bump stock ban. Now, I don't know if he actually did it per se. I think it came from the ATF, but he's in charge of the ATF.
Sure.
I didn't really. I don't like it.
But the bump
Not that I own a bump stock. I don't own a bump stock, but and if I did, it'd be at the bottom of a lake, and properly destroyed.
Yeah, for sure.
But that has not sat well with me.
Okay.
But in other ways, in the Second Amendment, he's been very hands off, and nothing's happened. So it hasn't been a concern, or the concerns that I may have had during the election. Nothing's happened really yet,
Okay.
other than this accessory thing, which I don't agree with. But I'm not personally affected by it, and I don't know anyone who's personally affected by it. So the impact to me is very minimal.
Okay.
Like, I'm not going to go out and buy a bump stock. I
Right.
don't like the idea of them. I just don't. I even more so dislike the idea of it being regulated into oblivion.
Okay, so I think I understand where you're coming from, but how does a bump stock equate to his conservative values or lack thereof, right? I mean, because a bump stock is not a firearm. The Constitution doesn't guarantee us the right to own a gun part or specific gun part, right?
At what point does a gun part become a gun?
Well, okay, so that's a great place. So if you were asking me if I believe that that we should be allowed to own fully automatic weapons, that would be a totally different argument. I would say, yeah. I mean, personally, I feel like as far as the Second Amendment goes, that whatever weapons that are available to the military, then we should be allowed to have those.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'll go along with that. But a bump stock, the military doesn't use bump stocks. I mean, so, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the gun part, so how does that equate in your mind to? I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation. I mean, you got my attention. You said you thought felons should be allowed to own weapons. So, all right.
The bump stock is an accessory, and it's not a Second Amendment item. I guess I can kind of see where you're coming with that, but now I can't even think about it. I can't articulate the you kind of got me.
So,
because I don't really see it separate. It's hard for me to go, well, it's not. I can see what you're saying, but I'm not able to separate it myself
sure.
to make an argument, because it's an accessory for a firearm. And if you start going, well, accessories aren't part of a firearm, well, that's a lot of things that we take for granted on firearms: scopes, optics, slings, stock, for the kinds of stocks you can use.
Well, you can look at the magazine.
Foregrips,
Okay,
magazines, silencers.
Okay.
You know, all these things are accessories, but they're part of the firearm.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So I guess I can't make that leap, and I'm not able to articulate it. I'm sorry about that.
That's fair
So
enough.
sorry.
That's fair enough. So, I mean, obviously that. So, would you say that when it comes to individual liberties being interfered with, that you kind of jump off the bandwagon, even though you don't necessarily need those liberties or exercise your right to those things? It's just the idea of the government grabbing more from us is the issue.
Well, is it the 9th or 10th? Says, you know, anything not in here is reserved to the states and the people. So
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
under that, I would say the accessories
Sure.
would be part of that.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Fair enough.
Or you can make the argument, but I'm sure a lawyer would do a better job.
Yeah, we'll have to get Nicholas Ricada on here one of these days and
Yes.
we can discuss that. So, okay, so of course, so moving on when we're talking, so where does he stand now in your mind? I mean, 2020 is coming up. Could you support him
Maybe.
now? Maybe. So he still hasn't convinced you that he's conservative.
Well, I wasn't going to vote for him in 2016, but now it's a maybe
So,
for 2020.
I mean, the guy has been the most conservative president of my lifetime.
Probably a good example would be in my youth when the first president I voted for was Bush Jr.
Ugh. Ugh.
And I was a rah, yeah, Republicans.
Ugh.
We got it.
I've lost a lot of respect for you. You voted for Bush, but you're struggling whether or not you're going to vote for Trump?
You got it. I was a young lad at the time. You know,
There's no excuse.
I've grown and learned a lot since then.
There's zero excuses. Okay, so yeah, dig yourself into this hole a little bit deeper.
Was I even out of high school then? No, I don't think
If
I
you
was.
were voting legally, I hope you were.
Well, I was a late chicken.
Okay,
or
all right.
Late spring
Late
chick.
bloomer.
So I technically graduated when I was 19.
Okay. All right,
So I went to kindergarten when I was 6 and just.
okay.
So, well, I turned 19 that year. So when I graduated. Anyway, so point is, first president I voted for was Bush. But I wasn't out of high school, and I was very, very. I don't even what would the word for that be? I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was a young, stupid kid.
Naive?
Naive.
Okay.
So, since then, though, I've learned a lot more about what happened during that part of my youth. You know, 9/11, the Patriot Act, and things like that. And I look back in shame on that I voted for him, that I was so rah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that again, right? Like I don't want to vote for a guy and give him my voice,
Okay.
give him my endorsement for something
Okay.
when I can't bring myself to in those core areas to
Right.
that we agree in that.
Okay.
So that's why I'm a maybe,
Sure.
because there isn't a Saruman on the other side right now that I know my vote is going to tip the scales.
Okay. I mean, now, with that being said, I mean, we are having major discussions in our country right now as far as the electoral college, right? And in our state, they're actually talking about going to a popular vote. Now, there's two things that I'm hearing on the left that we're speaking to right now that's kind of interesting. So you're saying at 19 you voted, but still a certain level of naivety, right? So you felt like some of your core values were not established at that time. So obviously you voted differently at that point than what you would vote now. So we're dealing with, Nancy Pelosi just last week saying that she wanted to lower the legal voting age to 16, which sounds disastrous to me, right? I mean, weren't these kids eating Tide Pods like
Yeah,
a
but
year
then
ago?
they have to stay on their. They can stay on their parents' insurance for another 10 years.
Right. So we're saying, yeah, they're not mature enough to get their own health insurance, but they are mature enough to decide the next leader of the free world.
Oh, and they also can't comment on YouTube or have YouTube channels where comments are enabled. They can't enter into contract. Well, as far as I'm aware, enter into certain contracts. They can't get married. You can't get married too young because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Can't drive too young because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. So we've got that.
But you can vote.
But you can vote. You can vote. So I mean, so you talk about it because I mean you're a very thoughtful guy as far as I don't mean thoughtful in the fact.
Don't give me too much credit.
I'm not. I'm trying to be careful how I word this. But essentially, you do put a lot of thought into things before you start popping off the mountain talking about them. I mean, I've known that about you.
Sometimes.
Most of the time, I would say that we all have our moments of weakness. I mean, you're better than I am. I just started just flying off the handle. So I give you that. So, but even you, at the age of 19, like as far as the government is concerned, you were an adult at that point, right? So you would say that your voting habits or your core beliefs have changed that much since then?
I wouldn't say there's core. I would say my beliefs are the same,
Okay.
but my rose-tinted glasses of the Republican Party and government have been stripped away.
Okay. So would you consider yourself a Republican then?
Only because they're the closest that I can even remotely get behind.
Okay. All right.
If there was a powerful, libertarian party that wasn't a bunch of wackos who would jump up on stage half naked, high as a kite, I would probably be a part of it. But
It
frankly,
sounds like a much more fun convention, doesn't it?
I mean, there's fun, and then there's we got to do business. And
Who says
politics, you kind of have to do business. So.
Or just argue and get nothing done. But all right, so as far as that goes, so you would, I'm assuming you would believe that 16-year-olds probably are not established enough in their own belief system to choose the next president, right? But why do you feel like they're leaning that way? I mean, why do you feel like they are
votes? I mean, why would anyone want to expand the vote? Is to get more of them.
Well,
They think that in doing so that they're going to control that, or they're gonna profit from it,
right?
Like it's the only reason anyone expands the vote.
Well, I think it was interesting. I saw a USA Today article not too long ago that Trump has now got a 35% approval rating with African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, years ago, the number was, 20%? That if the Democrats ever lost 20% of the 14%.
I don't know if that's true, but it seems high to me.
What, the 35%?
No, the previous one.
That he has 35% approval rating?
No, like back in the day, it would have been 20 or less. The 20 seems high to me. But,
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, sure. But
that might be me being a racist, so.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible. Okay, so with that being said, I mean, so you honestly feel like they're hurting for votes so bad that they're looking to get to that next voter block?
Eventually. I mean, maybe not right now, maybe not in a couple years, but eventually.
Wow.
I mean, you always got to be planning ahead.
Right.
Got to be 5 steps ahead. If your opponent is 4 steps ahead, if you're 5 steps ahead,
right,
you're gonna win.
Right.
I mean, so
I see this huge, especially with Brexit, with the what do they call the Lexit with the Latino vote?
Oh,
the Latino vote.
Alexis's what?
and the black vote, I mean, leaving in such a huge, numbers. I mean, people finally started to realize, especially as far as the black community goes, that the Democrats are not their friend. I mean, they've been making promises for decades, and haven't delivered on any of those. I mean, you look at some of the worst neighborhoods with the highest murder rates, with some of the worst economies in the country, and they are predominantly run by Democrat leaders. So I think people are starting to see past that, and I like to think that Trump has a lot to do with that. That he's forced people to go outside of mainstream media to find answers. But maybe I'm giving him more credit than what you would probably give him.
Maybe. I do remember one of the places I frequented during the 2016 election, and even still today a bit, though far less, just because other things have been demanding of my time and my free time, was the Donald on Reddit. And when they would talk about black conservatives, or not black conservatives, but the black community and rappers coming out against Trump, the Donald would go, whoa, wait a minute. Like, look at all these rap songs that you wrote about how you wanted to be Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And you thought he was a great guy.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if that might have been a part of the avenue of, wait a minute, my favorite rapper's been, this guy's great, I want to be him.
I think we have a very short memory
Maybe,
in America, but yeah, I mean, everybody wanted to be the black Donald Trump. I mean, who didn't want to be Donald Trump before he became? Nobody wants to be him now.
Yeah, I really don't want to be president.
Yeah.
Sounds like a hassle.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it.
And you'd have to have Secret Service with you.
Yeah.
All the time,
yeah.
Even when you were done, because everyone hates your guts.
Yeah.
Or half the country hates your guts.
I mean, but so with that being said, I mean, so where do you see this whole electoral college thing going, and how do you think it would affect?
I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't.
Oh, okay. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of protections there that we would lose as a result of it.
Well, as a resident of flyover country,
right?
Yeah, we would quite a bit. The kind of a segue into why I think it's important is because the way we were originally set up as a country was every state was its own country, right? Like Minnesota was a nation on par with England or France or Germany or Sudan, whatever was around. But our first Articles of Confederation and then what became the Constitution of the United States, we were separate nations, but we had this really binding and in practice became one nation. But each of the individual states kept a lot of the rights that a nation would have. Like they could control a lot of things. Like the First Amendment didn't apply to the states really. Like each state had their own church for a large part. Since the 14th Amendment, that has really gone away, and the Civil War has really destroyed that. I'm a Minnesotan, screw everyone else, type of mentality that people had about their home state. So circle back into the Electoral College. The Electoral College allowed states who didn't have a high population to be able to actually have a say in who ran the country. Now, it kind of would go away if the House of Representatives stayed the way it was supposed to, with, every 30,000 people would get a representative. It would skew towards higher population.
Right.
But whatever amendment it was that capped it, really allowed the smaller states with less population density to be able to have a voice.
Right.
On the national scale.
Sure. I mean, I look at it as a concern. I mean, one of the things we're seeing in the area that we live in, for example, is we see the issues with mass immigration and sometimes the lack of ability to assimilate into that particular area. I mean, what I mean by that is, you know, in our area we see, you know, communities that, you know, were the Swedes, you know, and colonized or you know, settled in.
Don't forget the Dutch.
And the Dutch, you know,
Oh.
big communities with the Dutch.
Phew, man, if you ever want to meet them more, well, and they're not isolated, but if you meet a Dutch person, you're gonna know Dutch all over the country. They somehow, no matter where you are, they know.
Oh yeah.
They know. Like one of the guys we both know.
Right.
He grew up out west in a Dutch community.
Right.
Actually came to this area for school.
Right.
Met his wife, but didn't know, this was like in grade school. Didn't know that they were going to get married someday. Then he went back. Then they ended up at college together and they got married and then they're back here.
Sure.
It just blows my mind how tight knit that community is, but yet so not.
Right.
Anyway, so little aside, funny story.
But it's
great people.
Great people. But it's interesting that communities have always been formulated around people who thought similarly, who believed similarly, who worshipped similarly. There's a lot of different, small issues that go into formulating as far as formulating community, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people around. But one of the issues that we've seen, I mean, on a countrywide scale, I would say, is that, I mean, we have these large influxes of people coming in that believe their own way. They are settling into a particular area, maybe for economic reasons, for political reasons, whatever it might be, right? But their beliefs don't mesh with the beliefs of the people that are around. And so we're not seeing the assimilation, which I think for a vibrant and thriving community, that's so necessary and so important to have that assimilation. So when we talk about the Electoral College, I mean, for example, how important is that going to be moving forward when you have communities on the West Coast or on the East Coast that they all think very similarly, right? I mean, very liberal leaning in a lot of ways in some of these larger areas. As far as the Second Amendment, like you talked about, a lot of people believe a certain way about that. So when you have these large pockets of place, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Houston, I say LA already?
You did say coast.
San Francisco, right? You've got these large populations of people. How will we in Middle America have a voice at that point?
We wouldn't. I wouldn't say. I mean, now, if you look at any election map, you see some red, you see some blue, but you see a lot of purple. And it gets tricky because, you know, even around here, we're about 50-50
right
on both sides of the scale.
And
so we're very purple.
Community.
We're a very purple district.
Right.
But so you can't go, well, you know, the West Coast is going to completely decide everything, right? Because there's going to be some conservatives out there. But it's a very simple talking point. Like, people are going to latch onto it because they see what happens on the coast, like California, and their constitution and propositions, and, you know, everything causes cancer, and even cancer causes cancer. You see that and you go, well, that's how that's going to play out in a presidential election.
Right.
And that's sort of true, but you can't quite quantify it, right?
Right.
Because there's still going to be conservatives out there.
Sure.
Well, hopefully, but kind of get what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
It would hurt, I think, I think it would hurt the rural more, just because we have large amounts of land with relatively few people in it.
Oh, I mean, by far. I mean, but it would concern me because we see it in our state, for example, that you get into the large cities and very, very blue, but the majority of the landmass is occupied by people that are very conservative leaning, right? But we often see our votes washed out, our conservative votes washed out by those
Minneapolis,
people.
St. Cloud.
See,
Duluth.
I've been trying not to talk about the state that we're in.
Oh,
Thanks a lot.
well, no, we've talked to
All right,
people.
Scooter.
Don't worry. I'm sorry.
Anyway, that's fine. No big deal. So, but
We talked about having Nick. So I mean,
well, we can go to Nick. I mean, you know, they make airplanes now. So, but,
well, you've been on a show like twice now, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean,
It's a lot of fun. Nick, you got to come out to our show. I know he was watching a little bit ago, so Nick, you got to come over and I think that'll be kind of fun.
you got to laugh at our boomer setup.
So, but with all that being said, though, it concerns me that the government within St. Paul, they don't seem very well connected to the rural community as far as, you know, life out here, as far as, you know, the agriculture side and those types of things. I mean, I don't think our governor comes out here very often unless it's for a pheasant opener.
Don't forget the fishing.
Oh, fishing
super
opener.
important.
Right? Yeah, super important. So, but it concerns me that if the majority of our representation is coming from, you know, those larger hubs, we won't have much representation at all. I mean, people forget the fact that we're supposed to be a republic, not a democracy to begin with, right? So how do you see that changing the scope of things in our country if we were to see that electoral college go away?
I think it would be very close to the end.
Yeah.
Personally, I really don't want a civil war ever. That's a lot of dead bodies.
Let's not. We don't want to be seen as talking about.
No. I want to make it clear. I don't want war. It's horrible. Okay. If we're going to talk about the future and the consequences of our actions, we need to look at what people do when they get desperate. And you know, this thing could be 50 years in the future. I'm going to be dead in all likelihood because I'm probably going to be dead in 10 years. But you know, our children's children are going to have to deal with the consequences of whatever political decisions get made. And so I want to be very clear. I don't want war, but since we're talking about what happens or what might happen if rural folk get, well, you lost, so poo-poo to you. What might happen? So, all right, I'm stumbling over my words now.
No, I mean,
and I'm looking at the mic like that's where the camera is. Like, I should be looking at you.
I fully understand where you're coming from as far as that goes. I mean, obviously, when people's liberties are taken away and they are desperate, desperate people do desperate things. I totally understand that. But right now, we have a chance to have our voices heard. Mm-hmm. So we have to take advantage of that. The longer we sit back and allow things to happen. Correct. The longer we sit back and allow things to happen, the worse it'll be for our children going forward. It'll leave them with far fewer remedies. So I can understand and agree with that. But back to the discussion of, so does he have your vote and why does he not have your vote going forward? Why do you feel he hasn't earned your vote for the future?
I would say similar reasons to 2016, just unsure. He hasn't, if I would like the president to go, all right, ATF, we're done with you. You're gone. All your horrible regulations are out of the window. That would probably get me to vote for him tomorrow. Or, you know what? Abortion's bad. It's going to get prosecuted for termination of a life. all those abortionists are going to go to prison or, execution chambers. Probably have my vote tomorrow.
So that,
but he hasn't. He's been very good with decreasing government and not getting us into long-standing wars and actually sort of getting us out of it. He's done very good in that. It's just, again, those two very important issues to me. I haven't seen I can really get behind this guy type of things. So same reasons. Now, would I vote for him? I haven't looked at the numbers for this last election, but in prior elections with conservative versus liberal candidates, Minnesota has not, if you add up all of the conservative candidates that have run on the ticket and added them together, they would not have won against the liberal candidates. So that's what I was basing my vote on, largely, was even if I voted for Trump, it wouldn't matter because Hillary or the liberal vote would have been greater anyway.
Right.
So someone told me that this last election, that wasn't the case.
No, if you would have backed out the votes for Johnson and Stein, which the votes for Stein would have probably gone to Hillary anyway, but just the Johnson votes alone would have put Trump.
Yeah, that's why it was categorized like liberal versus conservative leaning candidates.
Yeah, but the votes for Johnson alone would have put him over the top.
Okay, so that would be a reason why I would vote for Trump, or part of the reason why I would vote for Trump would be, because if I don't, he might not get it, right? Or he might, the other person's going to get the electoral votes for Minnesota, and I don't want that to happen because I really don't want them to be in office.
Right.
So I will throw my vote in behind him in a sausage making, this is just how politics actually works.
Okay, so we gotta shut it down, but I'm gonna throw you in the hot seat.
Uh-oh.
If you had to, under penalty of death, vote for one of the Democrats that are currently running right now.
Who is it? I haven't paid
There's
attention.
like 50.
I know Avanti. I know Avanti put his name in, but he doesn't seem to be going anywhere anymore.
Isn't he in jail right now?
I don't know. If he ran, it would be funny.
The creepy porn lawyer. That would be kind of fun to watch.
Should we look up, see who's running? Because I have no idea who's running.
You can look and see who's running. I mean, you've got Beto O'Rourke, you've got Kamala Harris, you have Bernie Sanders. You seem to be kind of a Bernie guy, aren't you?
I'm not. You see me as a Bernie guy? That hurts. That hurts a lot.
Let's see, Mrs. Producer.
Let's see.
Cory Booker.
Peter. I don't want to say that name because it's kind of gross. Julian Castro, John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Kristen Gillibrand.
Oh, hey, we
Mike
got,
Gravel.
We have our own senator running, Amy Klobuchar.
Really?
Yeah, she's in. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, she's in.
Who's the guy who said all the evangelicals shouldn't be voting for Trump?
Anyone who wasn't Trump.
So, is that Marion? Oh, Marion Williamson. Isn't she the one who wants to give black people money? Yeah.
Yeah. She was the reparations gal.
Yeah, she's the rep. She wants to give black community $100 billion.
Sounds a little racist, but
$100 billion
compared to Andrew Yang, who wants to give $1,000 to everyone.
Oh, a month, right?
A month, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
I mean, he's the least.
Oh,
I didn't want to say that name because it's
something
so crass.
Yeah, Peter.
I think it's funny that he's gay and that's his last name. What's the?
Oh dear. Oh, this is gonna get demonetized quickly.
Peter Buttigieg. All right. So, who would you vote for out of that? Would you go Amy Klobuchar since she's a fellow Minnesota?
Well, no. They all are. No, I couldn't. Now, I want to make it clear. I want to make it clear. My vote for any of them would be because I think it's the funniest. Right? Okay. So I would probably say Yang Gang would get my vote
Okay.
because I think everything would burn down the fastest under him.
Yeah, man. I mean, you have to go for history. I mean, we've had a black president. Well, kind of black president.
I'm not touching that.
You don't have to. I did. We've had a black president. We haven't had a woman yet. And we've never had an Asian president. So
Asian.
yeah. So I mean, so you would want the first Asian president. If you had to vote for one, you'd vote for
race has nothing to do with it. It has entirely to do
his
with.
name is Yang.
What does his
It's
name
no
have to
secret-
do with
it's no
how
secret
fast
that
things
he's-
would burn down? Are you saying Asians burn everything down
I
fast?
did
or-
not say that at all. I did not say that at all. I did not say that at all. All I'm simply saying is that his political views
Mhm.
would bring things down, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would
all
burn
right,
things
all right.
down quickly.
All right. It would burn things down.
And that
quickly.
would kind of be funny. Kind of.
So-
It'd be the most funny.
the collapse of all. I mean, so who do you think would burn it down faster, him or if AOC was in office?
Are we talking like
You think that's a
intention, like throwing gasoline all over the house and lighting a match, burn
Yeah,
it
I
down,
mean,
or accidentally knock over a scented candle and burn it all down because your house is filled with polyester upholstery?
I think there'd be gasoline and matches would be AOC.
If her public persona is calculated, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would go with the accidentally knocking over a scented candle in a polyester upholstered house.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, guys, I appreciate Mr. Soter coming into the darkness. I don't want to call it a warehouse, but darkness studio.
The dark studio.
And obviously, it's great to have different people come in. We don't agree on everything. We agree on a lot of things, but it's also really good to talk to someone that's actually taking time to figure out how to articulate their thoughts. And so,
However poorly.
it's good to hear from another side, a little bit different side. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate you guys getting in. Please like the video, but also subscribe to the channel. We're going to be uploading a lot more content. We want to bring some good content to you guys, thought-provoking. You might not agree with everything, but we hope that it will at least promote dialogue respectfully and also provoke thought. So thank you so much. Have a great day and have a productive week.